Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes with the next episode of Going Back to the Basics. This series was made to make you guys think of off-the-wall topics during the off-season, stuff that you might not think about prepping, stuff that you might not, think about doing. And this is a topic that I don't think gets talked about or people realize it very often. But it's hunting buddies and sharing intel. We dive deep in with Josh Profit on this one, and we get in the nitty-gritty of, how much is too much, who should you send to, who should you not send to. Really fun podcast, really fun topic to get into. But let's get into the people that make this possible, starting off with Exodus Outdoor Gear. Guys, the new Rival Cell Cam is out and live, ready for you guys to order. That's $179 5-year no BS warranty cell cam from Exodus. There's a great video on their YouTube covering the Rival cell cam, and this is a plug and go cam. You get it out of the box. You're going to scan that barcode on top. That's going to give your warranty right away. You're going to be able to get the serial number to warranty that camera right off the rip. Then you open it up, get the barcode for the ScoutTech app, put it up, turn it on, and that's it. There's no settings on the cam. It's a basic plain Jane, thank you ma'am, camera. Everything's done on the ScoutTech app. Real simple, and you change all your settings on demand right there on the ScoutTech app. They have a version where you can do it on demand instantly, or you can do it where the next picture it takes, it will do the upload for you. If you want to switch from video to picture or time lapse or whatever you want to change into it, they give you two options there. But that is $179 trail cam, cell cam, that you're going to be able to get that 5-year warranty, that no BS warranty, and that theft and damage coverage of 50% off one camera. If anything happens to that camera, it gets smashed by a baseball bat out there, or someone steals it, or it falls out of the back of your truck, something like that, you get that half off guarantee from Exodus. So don't miss out on that. They are on the show circuit, so if you guys are going to any of these shows, make sure that Exodus isn't there. You're going to be able to get this camera in your hand and really get all the details from Chad and Jake to really know what is going on. Cameron as well is going to make it to a lot of the shows. So let's get into the episode and get Josh on the line here. All right. Well, we got the famous Josh Profit on tonight. How you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm good. I appreciate the hype.
Yeah, man. You've been on enough shows now where I normally do a brief introduction of who you are and what you do, but we were talking about, man, you've been on so many podcasts nowadays that anybody that's listening to a podcast probably knows who you are, but go ahead and give them a brief introduction there.
Josh Profit, still the same OG in Kentucky, doing the same things. Been grinding it out on the public land for about 16 years.
Nice.
Yep.
Been on a ton of podcasts over the years, including this one multiple times. But we had kind of talked about this topic on and off for a long time. And then I did my I'm not going to talk about this anymore on the podcast post. And then you reached out and was like, hey, let's talk about it. So this is a great opportunity for me to talk about it, you to talk about it as well. I know last year was kind of eye-opening for you. And I'm going to throw this in the Going Back to the Basics series, because that series is about off-the-wall things that people don't really think about. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't really think about. When they do, they just do it.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're going to get into, I'm going to name it Hunting Friends and Sharing Information. Because I think there's two different ways to share information, one with your hunting friends and one with social media. And that's how we're going to break it down. So starting off, we're going to get into the hunting buddies. Okay? Now this is the close friend. All right. For a hunting buddy, close friend, do you share trail cam pictures or intel with that said guy?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I say yes. And why do you do that?
I got my circle, I keep it pretty small, and I do have a couple friends that I really do trust. And if I'm being honest, man, I just like to talk deer and kick strategies off my buddies because sometimes I'm not thinking outside the box, and I can't take credit for everything that I've ever done. So it's nice to have somebody to bounce that, to be like your sounding board and bounce that stuff off of, somebody you can trust.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I had homie there for a long time who hunted with me every time he went out, and for him to be able to, I say this, no, I don't really like that. And he says something, well, I don't really like that idea, and we bounce back and forth. It's really nice to have that. But I believe that needs to be a close friend that you've had some years hunting with. So if this is someone that's been hunting for a year or so and don't you knows a guy but don't really know him, feels like he's a pretty good friend, I would kind of tread softly in the waters at first. And one good term for me to know how far I'm going to stretch it with people is I wanted to see if this was the same with you. Is if I give intel, I get intel from them as well. I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think that's a win-win for both of us. If you say you share a trail cam picture of the guy the first time and say, hey, have you seen this buck? And he says yeah, but he kind of leaves it vague at like that and doesn't send you anything back or talk to you about the buck, then I'd say that's a no-fly zone for sharing intel with that guy. But if he comes back and says, "Yeah, I got here's a trail cam picture of him, and I encountered him or blah blah blah," he's giving you some intel. I think that's a good relationship to have and one that you can continue to pursue. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I agree 100% to that.
Yeah. So with your good close hunting friends, how much intel are you giving them? Are you giving them all of it, the whole kitchen sink? Are you keeping a little bit of nest egg for yourself, or how do you go about that?
Um, I got three that I share with, and they pretty much they get everything. But out of the three, um, one of them, him and I really don't cross paths just because he's on private ground so much, and um, it's to my knowledge, it's never bit me in the butt between them. But we're talking, more of a lifelong friend.
Yeah, someone that you've known for a long time, hunted with, kind of. I think there's like a thing where once you start, you're tracking deer together. You're when they shoot a deer, they're calling you to help them find it. Like when you get that kind of relationship where they're giving up that kind of intel, where they killed deer, stuff like that. That's when you can really start to stretch that out. I also have a really close friend that hunts mainly private, and he knows probably more than anybody, and we dive deeper than anybody because it's a safe go to. He's not going to pick up what he's got going on and go hunt the deer that I got. And we're mostly talking, private or public ground here, but this also, this happens on private ground. It happened to me this year on private ground, and that's why I decided to go the way I went. Um, People were very sneaky about doing things and not telling you, but the reason it really burned me this year was the guy did it and then waited all year and then decided to tell me at the end of the year to kind of rub it in my face, that he got it from the podcast. That's the only reason he was on the property, the neighboring property, hunting it. He said, I wasn't even planning on going there that year until you said that deer was alive. And he ended up killing that deer in November, and I continued to hunt that deer. And he could have texted me and said, hey, I killed this deer. No, he waited till after deer season was over to post pictures. I'm like, oh man, you did me dirty, dude. And then say, yeah, the only reason I was there is because you shared the intel. And then that's that burnt me pretty bad. I'm like, it's my fault for sharing the intel, but if a guy's gonna go kill the deer, at least let me know when you killed him. That's what I would like. So with those close hunting friends, do you guys hunt the same bucks?
Yeah. There's times when we do. My best friend, we really haven't hunted together since 2019. Just been on different properties and different counties. But there's an ex coworker that him and I have always been friends, and we hunted the same property this year. And he's been very respectful of me, and I've tried to return that in the favor. And um, he knows how I am, and I know how he is. And I mean, I really felt like that we both benefited from it because if I'm being honest, I'm more of a lone wolf, but I am a team player too. For I like to see my friends have success.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I want to kill just as bad as the next guy, but I love it when someone else kills. It's especially if it's a friend or a buddy, or I got a real good buddy that I just met on a public ground years ago, and he killed the second biggest deer on the property this year. And I know how much work he put out there in the summer. And if he's listening to this, he knows who he is. And I congratulate him pretty heavy on killing that deer because it was a huge feat. It's a deer that we've been hunting for a couple years, both of us. I'd never actually seen the deer. He had, and then he ended up killing him this year. So if you have that kind of relationship, of course you want to see the guy do good. And we hunt the same bucks. So we do bounce back at some intel. Hey, is this deer still alive? Yeah, he's still alive. He's not telling me where he got the picture of him. He might show me a picture. The intel's there, but it's not 100%. Oh, I got this picture. It was over here on this ridge, blah, blah, blah. And I do the same for him. I get a picture, I share with him. We keep the intel feed going, and we keep the friendship going. And he's the kind of guy, like, if he shot a buck, I'd go out there and help him get it out. We built that relationship. But that is a big struggle for a lot of people. Is they got a buddy, they're hunting the same bucks. One guy thinks he deserved that buck because he worked a little bit harder, and the other buddy ends up killing the deer. And there's some hella drama and some ended friendships. Just last year, I had a good friend that they hunted together for years, and all kinds of goose hunting, fishing, shed hunting, and he killed the biggest deer on the farm, and they never talked again. So it's one of those things. You get permission on my farm, I get permission on your farm. We'll flip flop properties. We'll both have more options to go. Well, the biggest deer happened to be on his farm. He killed him, and it was a devastation to the friendship. So that's something that you got to think about if you're going to hunt the same bucks.
Yeah, something I've always told my buddies is big deer do funny things to friendships. And, I lost one this year over some silly stuff. But, that may sound a little bit lucrative, but I mean, it really does. Like, big deer do funny things to friendships. And there are plenty of people out there, and there's probably people that's going to listen to this podcast that will play off of you. That, that's the world we live in today.
Yep, it's 100% the way it goes. And I know we were going to chat about this at some point in this, but when you do the podcast, I know it's I had people post, why are you going the route that I did? Well, I did the Patreon. If you want to chat with me about the bucks that I got going on, you can do that. I know who's in there. I can limit it. We can have a good conversation about it. We can do live chats. There's a lot of stuff you can do in there that you can't do on this format. But people messaging me, well, why are you mad that you're saying it or you're putting the intel out, just like you going on podcasts, on my podcast, other podcasts, you're putting the info out there. Well, it's because we love to talk about deer, and I love the story. I love the story of whitetail hunting. I love killing giant bucks, but I love the storyline and putting it together and putting it out there because these giant bucks, I mean, the stories, every one of them are so unique. And before podcast, the full stories, besides maybe a YouTube video where you can't really get the nitty gritty, was the only way to showcase these stories. So that's why I do this podcast and I talk about the bucks that I got going on. And I also want people to learn from my mistakes so they don't do the same thing. So why in the past have you shared hunting intel on podcasts and et cetera instead of keeping it to yourself?
I'll be the first to admit it, and I think it's not really a hard pill for me to swallow, but I think that I was chasing a little bit of fame. I wanted attention. And I think it's the same way for a lot of guys, especially a lot of the new up and comers. We all want our piece of fame. We all want the light shined on us. We all want the biggest deer. Uh, I'd say that had a little bit to do with it, or a whole lot to do with it in the beginning. Um, now as the years have went by, I've went kind of the other way. Um, I really don't care so much about sharing it. Um, and when I do share it, I try to be different about it. And next season, it's going to be way different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same with me. You finally get to a point where you're like, enough's enough. I agree with you. When I first started the podcast with Homie, you start a podcast, you're trying to pursue something that you love as a passion, but you have to have a little bit of credibility for people to listen, to tune in, to be entertained, and to think that you're gonna. And the only way to, you know, bring your story out is to talk about what you got going on. There's no other way to say, that you killed a buck other than you tell the story that you killed the buck. And for to have a platform where you release hunting podcasts or you film, the end goal is to share the story, but the end goal is to reach people. So we can pursue this, dream of, not doing it full time, but just being in the industry to be able to meet the people and have the relationships that you do. But the only way to do that is by showing what you got going on. Or for me, from now on, I'm going to be sharing what everybody else has going on that's willing to talk about it. And I, even when I, go on other podcasts, pretty I've been pretty decisive in what I say, kind of change in the layout of exactly how the ground might be. Not lying, but not. I'm making it really hard to decipher what's going on, to limit people from going to said areas. But it's crazy that this day and age that you have to do that. But they want the easy button, man. They're searching for that easy rip, and that's one way that they can get it. But like I said, I think you're right, man. I think at the beginning we were both, looking for the outlet because we love this, man. We want to be a part of the scene, and that was a way to do it by sharecasing. Because I reached out to you, dude, because you were slamming stuff and no one knew about you, back in the day, and you were gracious enough to come on here 5+ years ago, and talk about what you had going on.
Yeah, I mean, this year has been such an eye-opening experience for me. I joined the Whitetail Addictions team with Lone Wolf, and I did a couple of their road shows in it. I've deer hunted my whole life. I've bow hunted over 20 years. There's people that's done it a lot longer than I have, but so when I talk to people, a lot of my buddies have done it a long time. It's just we're just saying the same things over and over and over. Well, when I started doing these road shows, I realized there's a lot of people out there that just really don't know.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and that's where they're doing the road shows and listening to the podcast. And, with everything that happened with Bones this year, um, I think that I would love to help people out. And I think that's how I'm going to kind of gear my social media towards. But man, I'm really going to limit what I say and what I do and what I show because, man, with the way the podcast industry is and YouTube now, I mean, everybody is hunting the same way, and nobody keeps nothing in their hip pocket anymore. These guys hop on these podcasts, and they tell everything.
Yep. I was that guy. I was
I
that guy,
mean,
dude. Just straight
from
up breaking down bucks that I was still hunting because we wanted to chat about it and we thought it would be cool to share this information live because just like the story of Freeze, you talk about him a couple years, you share the information, then you connect on the deer, and then you go back and you touch on what information worked, what information didn't work. But it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So you don't you don't talk about any of this. You don't talk about any of the deer. You don't talk about what you got going on, and then you kill said deer. Well, there's no history that you didn't just see that deer one day and hunt him and kill him. There's no backstory to the deer. There's nothing for the people that follow your videos or follow your podcast to be like, oh yeah, he was hunting that deer 3 years. Like, let's dive in and try to learn from the story. Because like you said, I go to the same shows you go to. I go to the same, Iowa Deer Classic, the Lone Wolf shows. There's a lot of guys that it's hard for us to imagine because we've been hunting so long. But there's a lot of guys that are 1, 2, 3 years in, extremely hungry to learn how to kill a buck, just one decent buck. Like they're still trying to get that decent buck, or the second buck. They killed a buck maybe, and that's why they're really getting into it now. And now they're trying to kill that second buck. So not sharing anything, like I said, there is a negative to it, but the negative doesn't outweigh the fact that people are the value of the information that you're giving out isn't worth the reward in the long term of being able to showcase the story of the buck in full.
No, it's not. And, like everybody says that like hunting numbers are down, and I can't speak for that. I really can't. But what I do know is that the public land hunting is a trend now, and it's cool and it's talked about. And dude, there are so many people pounding these WMAs and these WEHI grounds and these government grounds. In Kentucky alone last year, Kentucky alone ran 11,000 new hunters through their hunter education.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And like I said, it's because of that was the push. There's low hunters, but all the people running podcasts, all the YouTube shows out there, all the big shows, even the big shows are going public. Like a lot of the big time shows have a public series or guys that hunt public. They're trying to showcase that because people love it, dude. They eat that shit up when it's public land because I feel like it's like, oh, I could do that. Like that's something I can do. When in the past it was, your 90% of outdoor content before podcast and YouTube was guys that were, yeah, guys that own their land or guys that went to outfitter after outfitter after outfitter, and killed the biggest deer that the outfitter had to offer that year. That was the outdoor industry. There was nothing like this. There was some. I'll give credit to some. There were some people out there on public filming way back in the day on YouTube, but 98% of it was probably what you see on the outdoor channel. It's just non-relatable stuff. But I remember when I was a kid, man, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're down here at so and so ranch," and they just go hammer a slob, and I'd be out on some southern Missouri public land where the biggest deer is probably 110 inches, looking for an absolute Mac Daddy out there, like this guy who just killed on the outdoor channel. So I think people coming on podcasts talking about public land and letting people know what's out there is the reason it's so popular, because it's something that everybody can do. And like you said, it's cool as hell.
And it's great. Like, I'm not complaining. Like, by all means, hunt, get outside, get your kids outside. But the way that a lot of these guys are killing these big deer that, and with the way that cell cameras are now and podcasts and just social media in general, like, man, these, myself included, man, we're really going to have to tone it back and think about what we say.
Yeah.
Because I've just been doing a lot of listening and a lot of research, and I've been having so many people message me lately over the deer I killed, the deer that are killed around here, and Man, people don't realize, just because you're not from the home state, like how bad you can hurt a place for somebody or even yourself in the future. They don't think about that because they killed a 170-inch deer and they want to tell everything about it. Well, what they don't know is, man, you really may have messed that up for your next year. They don't think about those things.
Yeah, it's definitely you got to pick and choose. You can share the story. I think you can still share the story, but you can't dive deep into the property or the ground or the area. You just kind of, if you want to share it, you just gotta be kind of vague. It just, if you want to, if you want to post a picture and share it, just post a picture and that's it. Nothing
I
else.
mean,
No intel, no nothing. But man, I love just like Dan Bayous has been posting those Facebook posts the last few days, kind of breaking down his season after season. I love that stuff. I eat that stuff up, and I'm not gonna go hunt his deer, but there's probably someone that's reading those posts that are like, "Holy shit, look at this giant that's on Dan's farm," So it's very beneficial for a guy like me, seeing the situations he was in and how he played it out. So he's helping me, but he's also hurting himself a little bit, and maybe he don't even know.
I wouldn't even tell what state you're in.
Yeah, I mean
I don't care if you're making a trip to Kansas and it's obvious that you're in Kansas. I wouldn't tell nobody anything publicly. I just, and I've done that before, but I'm telling you, man, that it's starting to bite people in the butt. I mean, you can contest to that.
Yeah, it is for sure. So getting into the second bullet point for this, we're talking about the friend that only comes around during hunting season. And I'm sure you have some of these. They get a couple good trail cam pics and they start sending them to you, and they're talking about, kind of what bucks they got going on and ask them what your stuff's looking like. And it's about that July, August time frame, how much intel are you giving those guys?
A lot to them.
That's a good way to do it. You gotta feed them the truth and lies at the same time, so they have no idea what is going on. Oh, I like that. I hate lying to anybody, but I have those guys that just they will not pop up on my phone until deer season, and then it's ding ding ding. And I have one guy this year, good friends with him, like good friends with him for a couple years. He knew that I was hunting my ass off and I hadn't killed yet. Hadn't talked to him for a month. It's middle of November, end of November. Hadn't talked to him for months at this point. Sends me 3 pictures of bucks that he's killed. I'm slamming it this year, man. What do you got? What's the problem down there? Why haven't you got it done yet? I'm like, dude, why do that? That's savage as hell. This guy's out here struggling like a mug trying to get it done, and not talk to, just literally to rub it in my face that he's killed bucks. That's the only reason he texts me. I don't tell that guy anything anymore. And we used to have a pretty cool relationship because we didn't hunt the same deer, So you're not sharing any trail cam pics, any about where you're hunting. You're not telling that guy anything. You're gonna have a conversation with him. Might be true, might be false. That guy don't know. That's your way about it.
It's going to be false. I've been working. I'm a savage when it comes to that, man. I mean, now if that guy comes and bounces some questions off me, I'd be more than happy to help him out. But when he turns things around on me, and he's that guy, he's not getting nothing from me. And that same guy, he can kill a deer and call me, and I'll go help him. But I just said it 10 minutes ago in this podcast. Big deer do funny things to friendships, and and I guess lying to people does too. But I've just been bit too many times, man. I just want to keep to myself.
Yeah. Well, the way I go about it is, if the bad thing is you don't know who that guy knows that he's talking to that might know where you're at.
Well, that guy's
That's
going to tell five or
yeah,
six people, and them
yeah,
5 or 6 people are going to tell 30 people.
yeah.
And all somebody has to do is get a trail camera picture of you, see your truck, see your
Hmm.
trail camera, see a picture of you standing in a field, and know what field it is, because that's the way it is today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I know this probably happens to you as well. As you know, we both run a lot of Exodus trail cameras, and Exodus is an awesome brand, but it hasn't been around as long as all the other trail cams out there. So people see an Exodus cam and they more than likely think that it's mine.
Oh yeah, that happened to me in late December, early January. Hey man, when did you start hunting Indiana? I was like, oh man, I ain't been up there. Then he sends me a picture of my camera. He's
Yeah.
like, this got your name on it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that it's been out for a couple years, man. It ain't got a card in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I started writing, cuz I was having the SD card thing going, which I got a new method for that I'm trying this year. But I was literally writing "Don't be a douchebag" on the bottom of my camera. So when they walk up to it, they have to choose in that moment to be a douchebag or to not be a douchebag and steal the SD card. And I don't know if it worked. I had SD cards stolen with that written on the door. I'm like, how? Even if you planned on stealing it, you walk up there and in black permanent marker it says that. How are you gonna steal that card and feel any remotely no remorse about it? Like, this blows
Oh,
my mind. But that's what
that
I
guy,
was doing. Yeah.
he had freaking tampons in his
Yeah,
backpack.
but that's what I was doing, and then people caught on to that because my dumb ass said, "Well, this is my new strategy," and then guys like, "Oh, I wasn't a douche," sends me a picture. I wasn't a douchebag. Automatically knows that it's mine. I'm like, well, now I got to stop doing that. Like, but I run cameras everywhere, and people are just associating my camera with, oh, there's a big buck in the area. No, that's not how it works. I run a shitload of cams all over the place trying to find a big buck. You know, like that's why I started doing the dummy cam method. I dummy cam the shit out of stuff because you cannot win if you talk about the content. And doing the dummy cam, that guy don't know if it's dummy cam, don't know if it's not a dummy cam. I might have 100 dummy cams out there. I might have 4 dummy cams out there. You have no idea what I got going on. But if I say I run dummy cams and I do, I mean, what is the guy going to think? Man, does this thing really work? Does it not work? Et cetera, et cetera. I tried to get Exodus. I said, hey, guys, do you have any like back stock of cameras that just laying around that I could buy that like don't work that I could buy for dummy cams? Because people know that I run Exodus cams and they're like, nah, man, we don't, everything we keep, we have for if someone, some other cam goes out, et cetera, et cetera. But I called them guys and was like, hey, can I buy like the junk cameras that come in that people don't use? And he's like, well, we still warranty parts out of them and stuff. I'm like, okay, I understand that. But I've tried to go any way about it to not do it. But the way I go about it is if they're friends, if I have a good relationship, I probably give away too much intel to them. I might share a couple pictures. He shares a couple pictures of mine. I'm a little more lenient on my private ground stuff for sure. I only shared my public land stuff with just a very few minute people. One thing I have been doing with every trail cam post that I send out, I cut the date and time off. Every post I post on social media of a trail cam video, a trail cam, I cut the date and time off. I've been doing a lot of I don't like to share a lot of daytime pics because I feel like people can pinpoint an area a lot better at daytime. And then I've also been hanging a lot of cameras high on scrapes and stuff, and it's really hard for someone to find that 10 by 10 square in the woods because it's pointed straight down. You're only covering a small area, then you can't see all the backdrop of the trees and the skyline or whatever. Because it's crazy. Guys like me and you who go to these public lands all the time, we can see something, automatically know where it's at. 2 years ago, a guy from out of state put a picture on his Facebook story, getting ready to go out in Illinois, and first time in Illinois or whatever, and it was his bow sitting on the back of his tailgate, and he had a sticker in the back of his window, and I seen that it was a gravel parking lot, and I seen the tree line, and I called out exactly where he was at, and went out there and met the guy. Like, I was like, hey man, good luck. I've had good success over here and there, you know. And he's like, how in the hell? I'm like, dude, when you've been there 100 times, this shit just pops in your head, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm amazed at how many people. Not only do they tell what state they're in, they tell what property.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like literally tell what property they're on.
Yeah.
And I was on a big piece of government ground one time, and the same guy that ended up stabbing this knife in my back over bones, like he literally like took pictures at the welcome sign, and like that was his YouTube intro was this buck was killed here, and I was like, dude, why would you do that? He was like, oh, it's hundreds of thousands of acres, it's fine. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, it may be 400,000 acres, but you just showed 400,000 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done the same thing, man. Not showed like the parking lot or something, but definitely showed features that if someone knew the area, they would know where it was at. You know, and that's on me. That's just something you have to learn over time. You're just trying to, you want to film, you want a podcast. You're trying to fill the waters, and you just don't understand how savage people are at the beginning. It's something that you have to learn over time, and eventually, you get burned enough to just stop, and that's what I did now. I mean, if a guy wants to show support on the Patreon account and gets the information from there, hell, I'll chat about him with the buck at that point because there's value in what I'm saying, but there's no value in just bird dogging my work about finding a buck and then going there and hunting the deer without even remotely putting any effort in the property, just being like, oh, that deer's in there, I might as well go in there and give it a shot, so that's the way I'm going about it, because I really do love sharing info with people and chatting about it. I love chatting about shit. I do it with you. Like we're on a buck, I'll chat with you. Like, what do you think, dude? What do you think? I do it with Justin Hollinsworth a bunch. Like I do it with Jake from Exodus. Like he does the same thing with me. Justin does the same thing with me. We don't hunt the same deer. We got a good relationship. But you just got to learn from that. So let's move on to the next one here. Social media. Okay. Or / podcast. So let's go over podcast first. From here on out, how much are you going to give on a podcast? You're a pretty well-known podcast guest. You're a great podcast guest. You've had huge success. Are you going to go about more of a knowledge base and less storytelling approach, or how are you going to go about it?
I feel like the storytelling is definitely the direction I would like to go, because the industry is so saturated, with the how-to stuff. And if I'm being honest, it's like regurgitated. We're all talking about the same thing. And I feel like half of these guys that do a lot of these podcasts, man, they don't even hunt that way. They heard it and they say it. Um, I'm not trying to come off rude, but that's just how I feel about it. But I'm probably going to try to paint a very vague picture for people, just because it's so easy to find me personally.
Yeah.
You got 100 trail cameras on several thousand acres. People find it and they know what kind of trail cameras you run. Like I've literally had this happen to me to where I had a unknown guy I just passed on a walking trail. I said bye to him. Well, he messaged my buddy, and he was like, dude, I just passed Josh Profit on this walking trail. There's got to be a big buck.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, dude. People just decide that you're in an area, so there's a deer there, but they don't realize how many times we walk around a property pulling cams and there ain't shit there. We wouldn't waste a day there. It ain't worth the time.
Man,
It's there, it's there, but you go
I
pull
don't
cams
even,
and
I don't even consider myself that good of a hunter, but what I do consider myself is one of the hardest working bow hunters out there. Like, there's nobody out there, public or private, that's going to outwork me. And I'm not trying to come off the wrong way, but they're just not going to. Um, and that's where I find my success. And everybody else can do that too. But I'm not this great beer god with a bag of magic pixie dust in my pocket that knows everything.
yeah, I think the reason that they done it is you've been on so many shows over time, talked about it, that you are a good whitetail hunter. I know you're humble, and you said that you don't think you're that good, but you are good, dude. You find the deer, you kill the deer. It would be really interesting to be able to pull up a graph of how many hunters out of the all the hunters in Kentucky, how many hunters have killed a buck the last X amount of years, or had encounters with a shooter buck X amount of years? Because then you would really know a percentage of how you were doing out there. But in the long run, you're just versing yourself. So,
Just
like you
me
said,
and
no one feels like they're doing a good job. Like me, I've been told 100 times that I need to give myself more credit and stop telling people I don't know what the hell I'm doing on this show. But I'm a straight shooter, dude. A lot of times I feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing out there because I get my ass kicked so many times. I do the wrong thing. I pick the wrong time to go in. I bump a deer. I pull the wrong camera. If I went and pulled this one, I'd got the intel, could have made a move. Like I make too many wrong decisions to consider myself good at this. I'm way better at other things. you know, like I'm way better at being disciplined and working out and dieting. I'm good at that. Like I can do that. But this hunting shit, I haven't figured it out yet. And it took me a while to figure out the dieting and the working out and figuring out what my body works good off and don't work good off. There's a lot of shit you got to learn. But hunting, I don't think you're ever going to be. I don't figure like you're ever going to be like, oh, I got this shit. I finally got this shit. Like, I don't think you're ever going to go there. So for me on podcasts, I'm going to go the same route as you, man. I'm going to have people on. Like over the last few years, I've been doing these series. The one that got away. Not really a tactic talk, good content to make people think, a guy made a mistake. What mistake did he make? Why did the gear get away, etc. Then I did the next 7 day series where, if a guy did the next 7 days, this is what you got going on. I did the Legend of the Woods series. I'm going to go back to those kind of episodes, man. If you've noticed my past content for months and months and months, haven't really been like really heavenly like public land scouting or et cetera, like the normal talk that like you said, that's regurgitated, because I feel like I've covered the basics on that, and I come to a point where I want to talk about what I want to talk about. So I have people on that I want to talk about, and I talk about random shit like this, and there's going to come a point where shows have to get creative, or maybe people just love listening to the same thing over and over. I don't know. But I listen to shows, and I always get more out of a storytelling show than I do a tactic talk show, because there's only so many times you can break down, how to hang a mobile tree stand, or what's the best setup, or how to read rubs. Like, there's nothing new groundbreaking about that stuff. So from here on out, I'm going with the Legend of the Woods, the one that got away, more of that kind of stuff. And I think that I'll learn more from that, just understanding the situation that the guy is in. And I think that's kind of the same way you're going to do your podcast from here on out, is just strictly some storytelling. Hopefully some guys can gain some knowledge from that as well. So, the social media post, and I know this is huge for you because you share some of the stuff with me sometimes, and it just blows my mind.
You've seen what people have
Oh,
messaged me.
oh yeah, it is just crazy. Like you share some stuff, I'm like, dude, these guys dig deep. Like they're in there,
Oh,
like,
yeah, but they found the deer. They
yeah,
found their next year's deer. These people gave so much information that I have other people messaging me that have already found exactly to the same 2 acres they were hunting.
God, it's crazy.
So
So social media, how much do you think you should share on there of a buck that you're hunting?
I think you can talk about it. I really do. I think it's good to talk a little bit of topic. I would not show any shreds. I wouldn't even show a shed. I wouldn't definitely wouldn't show a picture. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think you could talk about it kind of like you did with Bones this year. You know, not a lot of people. You were kind of talking about hunting him. You know, you're out there. You're showing the story, but no one knew what you had going on. Like no one knew what the buck was. No one knew exactly what the buck was. You never said the name, because that's, you know, people say you name your deer, you don't name the deer, but it's a way that you can mark a deer. But if you say the name, people automatically know from 2 years ago you were talking about some deer. Like, oh, he's a giant. He's on this deer. Like it's just like you got to be so like you got to be so like secretive about how you word stuff and how you post stuff and what goes on social media, because if you follow those hunting pages, the amount of people that post a shed with the backdrop, or they post a buck trail cam picture with a backdrop, or I got this buck on X public land, he was in here with some does November, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you can't do that. Like you can't post it on those pages where thousands and thousands of people see him. You know, most of my stuff, if I post on social media, like I said, trail cams, no date, it's cut in on the buck tight a lot of times. If I do want to, share it for some content, if I am hunting, a lot of times it's tight shots, not pan shots, and it's shots of me in the tree, really hard to decipher. But if you've noticed this year on social, I even cut back on how much I shared on what I had going on. I did the Rut Update podcast, and I didn't tell anybody if I was on public, if I was on private, if I was on this deer. I was just going, this is what happened, this is what I seen, this is what's going on, and nobody knows. I haven't shared pictures enough intel. The only deer that anybody knows what they even look like is JoJo, the one that I missed. But no one knows where I missed it. No one knows if it was public, private. No one has any idea where that deer's at. But I'm not even going to do that this year. If you want
you know,
a trail cam picture of the buck that I got going on, you're going to have to personal message me, because I'm not sharing any content of what I got going in the oven.
that happened to me, and I sent them the wrong one. I mean, I'll just do like you did. I'll crop the date off. That's all you did.
Yeah, that's the best thing that I found. Crop the date and time off. Crop in tight on the buck. You can still showcase what you got going on. You can showcase a lot of the story with the picture of the buck, but people can't get the info. They just get the picture of the deer, and they're like, "Well, he's got a picture of this deer somewhere." Like that's a lot harder than, because I mean, I've done it where I've been walking ground. Oh, there's a stealth cam over there, or there's a Moultrie cam over there, and you remember that. And then you see a picture from someone else sent you that's a stealth cam, and that buck's on that property. And you're like, well, I know where that cam's at. So people are sneaky in finding their ways. So a guy's got to be pretty deceptive in how he posts stuff.
You personally don't gain anything off that. If you show a picture, it's nothing but clout.
Yeah, I mean
Look what I
yeah.
got.
I mean, if you're sharing it with a buddy, you get like to talk about it. But if you're sharing it on social media without a story, you're just like, look at this picture of this giant buck I got. That's literally all it is.
It's all about the clout, and you literally have nothing to gain, but the people looking at it have everything to gain.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like you mentioned in the past, I probably posted some pictures of bucks that I've been hunting, and just because. But now every deer that I talk about pretty heavily is already dead. Either I killed them or someone else killed them. I'll talk all day about them deer. You want to talk about those deer? 100%. I'll give you every detailed nick cranny about what I got going on, because that deer is dead and gone. Am I going to tell you what property was on? No, but I'll dive in deep with you. We can talk about that because it's already a dead deer. You know, that I feel like that's an okay route to go. So, another social media. Are you going to share the pictures of the bucks that you kill?
Yeah, I will do that. I'm just not to that point, and I don't put a lot of thought into that. I follow a good guy, or I follow a guy, and he really gets on my nerves. Like, I've contemplated just unfriending him. We already know what kind of deer you want to kill. And so when you post a picture of a deer and you cover his rack up, there's really not. You've already told me what I need to know, and if you tell me you killed a deer, that's, even though I haven't seen it. Like, I know you like to shoot a deer over 150 because that's all you talk about, or I know you like to let nothing but 3-year-old deer walk. So you probably shot a 4 or 5-year-old deer, which is probably a pretty good deer. When I kill something, yeah, I'm gonna show it, but I can't promise you. I may even lie to you what state I killed it in.
Yeah, I will probably showcase the same. I'll probably show the picture, and that, like I said, you're running a brand, you're running a platform. It's nice to be able to share your accomplishments with people, and killing a buck that you went out there and worked for is a huge accomplishment. And I love seeing pictures with dead bucks. I like seeing that. That's what 90% of my feed is on social media. So I will as well share pictures. I think that I think 90% of my stuff will be stage pics, not at the kill site. That's what I did this year.
Absolutely. Mine have always been that way.
Yeah. So a lot of times, like right when I got up to the bucks, I've took pictures with it, with the backdrop. I took pictures dragging it out. I took pictures getting it out. Like that stuff. I'll take pictures of that to put. I got like the old school flip through actual photo book that me and my kids go through. They love it. They're gonna think it's cool as shit when they get older, and hopefully if I can go through it with my grandkids, I'm gonna put it in there. But I ain't sharing that shit. All my stuff, like this year, I took my pictures at night in a cornfield. I'm like, find me, dude. Find where I killed this buck. I dare you. Snow's on the ground at night in a cornfield, and it's -4 out. Like, I'm like, that's what you guys are getting. I'm burned this year. That's what you guys are getting.
I did a lot of tights on mine. A lot of tights.
Yeah.
I dropped my stop down so it had that creamy, milky background. But I mean, I was still 8 miles away from where I killed the deer when I took my pictures.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's something that I'm not going to do, because can people get intel from that? Hell yeah, they can. I shared, like a dumbass, I shared the tree stand that I killed, like a picture of the stand that I killed the deer out of, like the setup. Talking about hunting setup.
Find it shed hunting or find it scouting.
Yeah, like, and then the next year, there's a stand in the exact same damn tree. I'm like, bro, if you had any idea how junk that spot was 93% of the season, like, I was in there on one buck that used that area, and another buck happened to come through there. Like, it's not a good spot. And obviously it's not a really good spot because that stand wasn't there very long. But
right.
A guy would rather not work for any of the intel, see my post that I picture, like, I'm in this junk ass tree, here's my setup, I'm leaning forward. I'm making it like as a joke post. Like, I can't believe this actually worked. I'm in this tree that's 6 inches around, no cover, not very high. And then the next time I go out there, there's a permanent tree stand hung in that tree. And I'm like, this is the god-awfulest tree to hang a stand in. And this guy just put a permanent stand and locked it on there. The only reason that guy is there is because of that post that I made. You know?
You really have to watch your landmark when
Yeah,
you're
you
posting
gotta watch
things.
that. So
I mean, everything from the trees, the fields, the roads, rivers, the creeks, any kind of backdrop, you really got to pay attention to that.
yeah, and
I mean, but
it just go ahead.
I'm not going to say necessarily I'm kind of shady, but I don't want to call it shady. I just feel like everybody start needs to be a little bit more covert with what they're talking about and where they're going, because in the future, in the near future, sooner than later, it's going to get out of hand.
Yeah,
Um, and it doesn't matter if you live in Michigan and you're going to Indiana to hunt and you think it's safe to talk about it. Like it's really not, man. It's
no.
a small world, and people dive into comments and looking at profiles, and with the way TikTok is now, and
Yeah, dude, I
uh,
didn't know it got as in depth, but then you're sending me this stuff. I'm like, there's guys out there that are spending hours of deciphering through shit to figure out where X buck is. Like they're going from post to another post because this guy's tagged in that post, and you're
yep,
like,
yep.
holy shit. Like there's guys that are really, that doesn't even cross my mind to
Well,
do.
because you got this guy that say, "Hey, man, I went to the Delta. I hit the Delta in Mississippi. I killed. There were two booners down there, and I killed one of them." And then he just talks all about it, and then he starts breaking down the property and talking about the people he ran into, and then all that it just gets let out of the bag so easy, and they can find it. Don't It doesn't matter where you're from, where you're coming or going. Like they're going to find it.
Yeah. And that's me. It's so hard to run a podcast because you want that intel, you want that story. But from here on out, like you said, you just got to be. I'll let the guy talk about it if he wants to, but I'll tell stories, but I ain't going it super in depth like that because it's just not. It's not
No,
worth it. You're doing it.
no,
You're doing it. You're doing it for two reasons. Like you said, you're doing it because you don't even realize that people would go and do that, or you're doing it to get some clout and say I killed this buck, you know, which
yeah,
we all want to kill giant bucks, and showcase what we got going on. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just think 90% of the people don't even realize how deep the depths will go of what people will do to find that buck.
no, they won't. And like, I'm going to touch on private ground a little bit. Like some of these guys think that they're safe, man, and around my parts, man, they're really not. I dated a girl for a couple of years that was an outfitter, and I'm telling you right now, man, you may have a little farm that's 150 acres that you've had permission to hunt, and there may be an outfitter that'll pay $40 an acre for it. So of course it's gone.
Yeah, that's
I
that's
mean,
that's been happening forever around here, man. Someone kills a nice buck, or what happens is they either sell it, the landowner either sells it because someone goes in there and offers them money, or it goes to an outfitter. And it's just a brutal cycle. But my situation happened on private ground. You know, it was private small piece and a small piece next to it, and that guy wouldn't even have been there if I didn't say, "Oh, this buck's alive and he's looking solid." You know, my dumb ass. Now, would I have killed that buck? No, but did that? It's hard to say you deserve to kill a buck. He didn't deserve a buck. But that guy hadn't been out there all year, didn't even have that, wasn't even going to hunt that property, he said. And that's where it was like, you put zero effort and time into anything until I said something. But like I said, I'm the dumbass that said it. So it comes back on me. That's why I took the route I took. It's just the way that I'm going to do things from here on out, and I think it's going to be better. I'm still going to be able to chat with people. I'll still be able to do live chats in there, and I know that the people there support me and what I got going on, and they're not going to they're not going to dog me like that because that's just a straight dog move, I think. Like, if that guy messaged me and said, "Oh man, that deer is alive," yeah, I think I'll go in there after him. Cool. Like, that's better than low key, no communication, and then waiting till after deer season to let me know that he killed him. That was the kicker, dude. Like, it was basically like, "Hey, you're a dumbass, and here's why." Like, that's what happened, and that was the moment I was like, "It's over." I'm done. Do
Yeah.
uh do you want to cover the story of Bones at all, or are you comfortable doing that, or what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I'm good with it. There's, not no. I had 3 years of history with the deer, and that when I say that, that sounds like a lot. The 2 of the years I really wasn't worth hunting, so there's not a big story. I mean, it was just a big deal, but we can. I don't care to go over it.
I meant like the story with the guy who backdoored you.
Yeah, I mean, so the guy that backdoored me, we were lifelong friends. Like I've taken him hunting before he could drive. So he was more like a little brother than a friend. And this piece of property, I was the actual one to turn him on to it. Like I was like, hey man, you should try here. And it's thousands of acres and it covers half the county. It's really broken up. And him and I were both hunting it this year. And I told him I wasn't. And he ended up seeing my truck. And I'm telling you, dude, he reached out to everybody. There was one guy that I was really good friends with, and he kept reaching out to this guy because he didn't know that I was good friends with him. And man, just the text messages alone that that were he was talking about me, just like man, it just make you want to get white knuckled, make you grit your teeth. It makes you so mad. Um, and there were times where my buddy was like, "Well, why don't we just ask Josh?" And he was just straight up like, "No, don't tell Josh I'm asking these." Um, he was dropping pins on my truck. And I ended up confronting him about it. And he told me that, he wasn't going to do anything. But that's a lie. Like he was going through way too much work not to do something. And I actually told him the deer was on a different piece of property and that a girl I knew had messaged me and told me about it. I thought he was dead. I just made up a big story. And he messaged her.
Damn, you guys
And
going
then
deep.
I was told, and I don't know how true this is, so take it with a grain of salt, but I was told that he was like asking around like some whitetail addiction guys, poking around questions. And anyways, but once he found my truck, it was like you said, he already knew what deer I was hunting after he found my truck because I showed him pictures of it 2 years before. So he put 2 and 2 years, two together. And he we could have salvaged our friendship. All he had to do was tell me he was sorry. Like own up to it, tell me he was sorry. But I got every excuse in the book, all the way down to where you think you're too good for me. And dude, I've tagged along with this guy turkey hunting just to take pictures. I've packed his corn for him on that particular piece of property. I've showed him trail camera pictures. Like, get out of here, man. Like, you just did me dirty.
Yeah, he dogged you
So
there, man.
I mean, he didn't have any ground to stand on, and there were a couple guys. He had another buddy that was dropping pins on my truck, and uh, I kind of let them both know how I felt, and um, still to this day, neither one of them's reached out and just told me, "Hey, man, what I did was wrong. I'm sorry," because that's all it would take.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, it's just deer hunting. It's just a deer, whether it's 130-inch deer or 230-inch deer. Uh, it's a big deal to me, but it's
yeah,
not something to me that's worth completely ruining a friendship. But if you can't man up and do what's right, then you probably don't even need to be my friend to begin with.
yeah. I agree. Man, that's tough, man. It's just like it's a giant deer, understand, but the bad thing about it is didn't even know what deer it was at first. You know, he was
No,
just so adamant on figuring out what you had going on that he's going through all that effort just to figure out what, why you're being secretive, because he probably knew you were on something giant, because you're being kind of low key about it.
well, I mean, everybody knows me. I tell everybody I hunt like a coyote. You know, I hunt for opportunity. I've never been a big buck hunter. Don't know that I ever will be. Um, and I was all in on this deer, and I was only all in on this deer because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, it's 230, 240 inch deer. Um, and then so that alone, when people knew that I was all in on bones, and I think a lot of that is my own fault for talking about it the way that I did. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell nobody where I was at. I didn't show any pictures, but just me talking about it got pins dropped on my truck.
Yeah, crazy, man. It's like you want other people to live through this moment with you because it's such a cool journey and story, but you can't until it's over. Like you just got to go out there dogging by yourself until it's over, and then that's when you drop the details. That's how I'm gonna do it, man. But the bad thing about it is, we've kind of kicked ourselves by, you know, creating. And I know there's haters out there. Oh, listen to these guys, bitch. They've been talking about what they got going on for years. Well, it's easy to be a hater, but if you haven't shared anybody, if you haven't, there's been someone that's been after the deer that you're after because you've said something as well. It don't take a podcast. All it takes is a freaking cell phone trail cam pic. Like it doesn't take a bunch of people to hear. It takes one person to hear. So this could hit you whether you think it would never happen to you or not. And that I did a poll on Instagram just to kind of get a median of what we had going on, and I asked, do you share trail cam pics? And the verdict for the first one, I got hang on, I got about 116 votes. 86% of them said yes. 14% of them said no. And then I did a vote where I said, do you post bucks that you've killed on social media? And I got about the same amount of votes for that. And I got 84% yes, 17 or 16% no. So about the same on both ends. Might have been the same people that don't show trail camera pictures might not post pictures of the bucks they kill on social media. But it seems like 85%. That's a pretty high percentage of the people out there, for an average that are doing the same thing that we're doing and thinking that nothing's going to happen to them. It's just that's why when you said let's podcast about this, I'm like, this is perfect, man. It's a perfect situation for what I'm going through, what you're going through, and hopefully it's opened some eyes to a few people so we can slow the trend of what we see going on.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it kills me when I see these out of state hunters come in here and tell where they're at and post the pictures just because they don't live here. Like, man, you have no clue what you're doing to yourself. You have no clue what you're doing to me. Because the stuff spreads so fast, man. And it
Yeah.
spreads to so many people. Like, it literally makes it around the Midwest in a couple days. I mean, thousands of people. And then by the time the season's here, God only knows how many hands and eyes it's went through.
Oh yeah, it's just like that picture of that giant buck that I'm sure you've seen it. That giant mainframe 8 that guy found deadheaded today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how many shares does that thing have? Like I seen it on multiple pages, of people sharing it. And then there's that I can't think of it's some southern buck it's got a kicker off its 3 and a kicker off its 2, and the guy took a picture right in front of the management area where he killed it. I'm like, and it's been shared a shitload of times because it's a big deer. But you know how many people were like, shit, I'm going to check that out. I'm going to check that area out, you know? And the guy who posted that, did he think that that would happen? It probably wasn't even on his mind. He was like, oh, yeah, I just take a picture here. But like I said, hopefully us talking about this, reaching people, and they don't, you ain't got to be a D-bag about it, but you just got to talk a little bit less about what you got going on, or this stuff's going to start happening to you.
I really think it's about the clout. Everybody wants to be a me monster, and I think that because I've been that guy. Look what I've done. Look where I've been. Look at my success. Not saying that I'm better than you, but just like, look at me.
You're proud of what you've accomplished and your success, and you want other people to look at it, and that's like I said, that's part of it, man. I've been there doing the same thing. When we started this, we didn't know, like, we're brand new. We had no idea. We're just a couple guys that were talking about what we done, bucks we've killed, what we learned. And I feel like if someone went back to the first podcast to now and listened to all my stuff, they would see the transition of a hunter that I turned into. And I got into that stage where I was like sharing everything because I thought it was cool and people were liking it. And now I'm at the stage where I'm not sharing anything. And there's people that made me this way, So it sucks that you can't do it, but like I said, it's just something that needs to slow down. And at least if you're gonna post something, think about what you're doing. Like you said.
Right. And I'm gonna tell everybody that's listening to this, like, if you do a podcast or something, like keep a couple things in your hip pockets, like don't tell all your secrets, don't tell everything because people learn this way.
Yeah.
There's been so many. There's been probably just as many big bucks die because of trail cameras as there have been podcasts in the last 5 years.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Of how people have learned how to hunt terrain, learned how to hunt swamps, who have transitioned into mobile hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's great. That's great, but it's really getting to the point from a guy that's done this for going on 2 decades on this public land, like, it's almost out of hand. And I really think all it goes back to is the clout, the views, the likes, the look at me. And where you get where I am now, like, man, it just ain't worth it. Like, I've posted a lot and I've started to tone it down, to be a little bit more covert, but man, I'm not lying to you. There's been times to where I've been in the stand and I'm like, dude, I want to delete it. Like, I just don't even want to have it.
Yeah. I get that a lot too. I told my wife, I said, if I didn't have a brand and what I got going on, I probably wouldn't have any social media because I don't use it for anything other than this. That's the only thing I use it for. Like, like, if you go to my personal page, I hardly ever post anything on there. And if it is, it's stuff about my family. My wife tags me in. Nothing, very little that I post. So it's like I said, it's a hard pill to swallow. To say that you're doing it for the clout, but that's the truth. You want to share the stories. And especially if it's just a picture of a buck, but there's value. Like I said, there's value in sharing the stories too. Like, there's huge value in that for guys like me who really enjoy it. But it just sucks that there is just people that just wait for people to do that and just attack, like when Dan's posting these stories on Facebook every day, I'm reading everything. When Clint McCoy posts a story about a buck, I read it all. when Moose is out there scouting and does an Instagram live video, I enjoy it. Like, I love that shit. Am I anywhere remotely thinking how I can sneak in and hunt any of these deer that these guys are on? It's not even on my radar. But for some guys, that's probably the first thing that they think, you know?
No,
So
I
are
mean this.
we wrong for posting the content for the clout or to share our experience, or are they wrong for doing what they're doing? You know, what's the worser of the evils?
I think you have to have a happy medium because, like, for instance, there's only a few states you can actually hunt a velvet deer in, and so a lot of people hop on that. And everybody that goes somewhere and hunts a velvet deer, like, hey, I'm going to Nebraska, and the hunting public or whatever, like, people realize, like, dude, they went to Nebraska 2 years in a row and killed 4 bucks between 6 people. Like, we can do that. It's time to go to Nebraska. And then be like, and then that's where they start funneling things down. Well, were they in East Nebraska or West Nebraska or Central Nebraska? And then it's just this
Yeah,
spiral domino effect. And I'm
you
telling you,
know, I
it just goes downhill.
I would be safe to say that, nothing against the hunting public. I love their stuff. Great dudes. I've met them, talked to them personally. But I bet you their content is probably I bet you they've transferred more people to public land hunting and to getting into public land than anybody else combined across the board. Like, I mean, it's just him,
And
him, Dan Johnson, or not Dan Johnson, sorry, Dan Infalt, those guys that are, all public, 95% public, talking about it. Those big people that have been doing it for a long time, they've probably, man, we haven't even been a drop in the bucket to what they got going on for the amount of exposure. But man, it's good stuff. I like it. You know.
I like it too. And I'm just urging people just to be a little bit more cautious about
Yeah.
what you say
It's
and where
definitely
you're at.
yeah, definitely a hard topic to pick. What is the worser of the evils? Like,
No, I mean, like you touched on the hunting public. Like, I think there's ups and downs. Like, these guys they've created a brand and they've made a living off of it, and they've done a good job. And, like, I respect that. Like, I really do. I'm not knocking them at all. But, like, the guys that has been hunting the public ground for almost 2 decades, like me, like, you can literally see the bell curve in it. You can see the trend coming and the pressure picking up. And um, with the way that everything is, man, you just have to be real careful with what you say and what you do.
yeah, I hunted a lot of public private mix when I was growing up, and never really ran into anybody. But I was in Southern Missouri. But when I came up here to Illinois in 2014 and started hunting public, I was like laughed at because it was my only option. Like, people were like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, that you're wasting your time. And I wasn't seeing giant bucks, but I was still getting on deer, and it was an option for me to go. But it's crazy that that was less than 10 years ago, and now
No,
if you don't hunt public, what are you doing? It's like a complete 100-degree switch. Like, if you hunted public back then, you weren't cool. You didn't have enough money to get your own private ground. You didn't have any connections to get your own private ground. Blah 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 blah. You ain't killing anything. You're not you're putting up with people out there walking in on you. I would never do that. That's what I used to hear all the time. I would never do that. I hate that. I would never put myself in that situation. And now the same people that said that are hunting public. So, like you said, it definitely has been a light switch event to switch from, like, private ground stuff isn't as cool anymore. It's just not. It's just not for people to listen to, people to talk about. It's just not. It's not as the hype ain't there for it.
I just like wild places, big adventures.
Yeah, there is something about.
I like I
Yeah,
like to walk. I like to walk a lot. I mean, I really like to walk a lot, and I can tell you, from experience the way that the deer are on private ground versus public ground. The deer on the public ground will go miles further than the deer on the private ground, and it's strictly due to pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But they really will. But it's trendy, man. It's fun and it's trendy, and there's still room for people, but you just got to be respectful of one another.
Yeah. I always say on here, if you want to start a podcast, do it. Go for it. If you want to start a YouTube brand, do it and go for it. But man, it's so saturated right now that to start a platform and get, any listener, you should be happy with any listeners at all or any viewers at all, because it's just there's so many people doing it that it's a really, really tough game. I got in me and homie got in right when it was getting kind of full, and now it's just geez, dude, there's so many of them. I love podcasts. There's no way I could absorb the amount of content that comes out weekly. It's just insane. You just have to pick and choose. So, well, man, I really, really enjoyed this conversation with you, man. This is cool. I've been doing these podcasts where there's a direction, but it's more of a conversation between buddies instead of do this tactic, do that tactic. And I'm really enjoying these kind of shows where I can get some more feeling and less tactic talk, Been really enjoying that. So I really appreciate you offering to come on and talk about this. And excuse me, hella props to you for, being brave enough that said to come out and say that, you feel like it's for the clout, because that's hard to do, dude. But like you said, it's right. After you said it, I'm like, shit, that's right, man. He's right.
There's no other. I mean, yeah, I just call it like I see it. I cut through the BS and just call it like I see it. So.
I mean, there's other reasons, but that's definitely one that's there because, it's part of the game of having a podcast or filming or anything, man. It's just part of it. You do it because you love it, but man, you want to show that story. You want to tell that story. It's so hard not to, because you want other people to enjoy it as much as you are.
I mean, one way to look at it is, and I really do believe this, I think that if we lost social media, the hunter numbers would go down.
I think so too. I believe so too. Just the new hunter numbers would go down too. I remember when I first started hunting, dude, God, if someone seen me walking into public ground now with what I had, the gear I had back then, the shit I was doing, trying back then, I would be hated. Dude, I would be super hated, I was walking in with a loud climber, the one that you had to put the metal pins in. My lazy ass wasn't putting the pins in the cable, so they were bouncing around, Didn't have camo really, had some bullshit stuff that I'd wear, made 2 different bottoms or something that didn't match, and kind of walking around way too much. But there's nobody out there then, But man, I'd be that guy that everybody hated because I was just trying to learn what the hell I was doing. I shot a doe opening evening on public land off the ground with a bow and drug that deer out all the way through a whole bunch of guys that were hunting the first day of bow season. Back then, I'm like, hell yeah, bro, I got a deer. I'm dragging it through. I shoot it early in the evening. I'm dragging through prime time. Not even realizing that I'm messing up. I'm just happy I shot a deer, dude. And the guys were actually pretty cool. They were congratulative to it. It wasn't as big a deal that if I did that now, holy shit, bro. They would hang me out there. I'd be crucified out there on the public land. So
I did it on Thanksgiving Day one time.
Oh, it's just back when, it was a little simpler, and I always think about, if I never started, if I wasn't this committed to the podcast, if I was 3 months in, would I keep going? If I didn't love it so much, would I be here? But I love it. I love these conversations, man. How are we gonna call? How am I gonna call you for an hour and a half and talk about this shit? Like, it ain't gonna happen unless I have this platform, man. And I think that we gave a lot of value to the guys to think about some stuff in this episode. And if you got a buddy that you share stuff with, maybe send this episode to him and be like, hey, dude, I know we share stuff back and forth, but I listened to this episode, and maybe I'm thinking about taking a different route, and maybe he'll listen to it and agree. Might be a great way to open the door to say, hey, guys, I'm kind of shutting down on the details. So, but all right, man. Well, I won't take up all your night. Thank you so much for coming on again and bless me with your presence, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's always a good time.
All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap on this episode. Man, I enjoyed this one. This was a fun conversation. Hopefully it opened some eyes. And just like we always say at the end of the podcast, try to do the right thing. And goes back to it, at the end there, we're saying, who's the worse or evil? The guys that are sharing the information or the guys that are using the information. So limit yourself on both of those if you are doing either one. I'm not the all say, all be, so you share whatever you want to share, but my content will definitely change throughout the year. I mentioned it on here. I did go to a Patreon account. It's under Whitetail Legacy on Patreon, and that's where all my content will be going when I decipher what bucks I got going, what properties I'm hunting, what I got going on. Everything will be on there exclusively to that platform just because of this exact topic of the struggles of sharing content and having a brand and what people do. So with that being said, always try to do the right thing. Try to leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out. Till we're coming in your ear holes next Wednesday with another episode. Love you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good week. We out.